Recently, Officer Tae Hyun Sok had been feeling rather depressed. After wrapping up a long and exhausting case, he wanted nothing more than to grab a drink, only to hear the devastating news that the woman he'd secretly loved was getting married. And the groom was none other than his old college classmate. That very day, Hyun Sok accompanied the soon-to-be newlyweds to a restaurant to sample dishes for their wedding banquet. The moment he stepped into the place, even before tasting a single bite, he found himself impressed by the cozy interior and elegant decor. As they chatted casually, the restaurant's owner came out carrying plates of freshly prepared food. The cheerful bride introduced them to each other. "Let me introduce you too. This is Tae Hyun Sok. Nice to meet you," the man said, slightly bowing. "I'm Seo Won Young." Won Young had a beautiful face, but his guarded expression made him seem difficult to approach. After one bite of pasta, Hyun Sok couldn't help but praise the taste over and over, even offering a few professional comments like a food critic. Curious, Won Young asked what he did for a living. Hyun Sok pulled a business card from his jacket and handed it over. Turns out he was a police officer. Won Young's eyes widened in surprise. Hyun Sok added with a friendly smile, "Your restaurant's actually within my district. If you ever need help, don't hesitate to call." Soon, the wedding day arrived. Watching the bride, dressed in a white gown, walking down the aisle, Hyun Sok felt his chest tighten painfully. Though reluctant, he had to accept the reality. When he was 17, he and Seo Si Hyun had dated. Their relationship lasted only 3 months before they broke up. Now, another man had won her heart, in just the same amount of time, and she was marrying him. In the kitchen, Won Young stood silently, the bustle and laughter outside seemingly belonging to another world. After the wedding, on his way home, Hyun Sok realized he had forgotten to take the food he'd ordered to go. He turned back to the restaurant. The moment he opened the door, he saw the usually calm Won Young sitting alone, clutching a bottle of wine, pouring it straight into his mouth. Tears streamed down his face as he muttered the groom's name. Min Si, Min Si. Hyun Sok froze, watching from behind. When Won Young heard the noise, he turned around, eyes red and swollen. Why did you come back?" Before he could react, Hyun Sok grabbed his wrist. "Won Young, are you gay? Do you love Min Si?" The question struck deep. Won Young flung his hand away, his voice trembling with anger. "Do you realize how rude that sounds?" Hyun Sok scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry, I used to like Si Hyun." He paused, then added, "How about we have a drink together? Guess we're both in the same boat." The scene shifted. The next morning, Hyun Sok woke up, head pounding, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. He blinked in confusion. "Where am I?" Then he turned and froze. Lying beside him was Seo Won Young. "This has to be a dream," he muttered in disbelief. He'd only come to attend his ex-girlfriend's wedding, but somehow ended up sharing a bed with the restaurant owner after a night of drunken sympathy. For a man who'd been straight for 30 years, this was simply too much to process. At least, he thought with relief, he had been the one on top. After a few awkward exchanges, Hyun Sok dressed quickly and left in a hurry. He never expected to see Won Young again, but fate had other plans. A few days later, Won Young's restaurant was harassed by a group of thugs posing as company employees, demanding he sell his property. Unable to operate, he called the police. When Officer Tae arrived, Won Young, without looking, threw a whole bucket of water at him, thinking he was one of the harassers. Hyun Sok, dripping wet, simply wiped his face and said calmly, "I'm a police officer, what's going on here?" Realizing his mistake, Won Young's face turned pale. He hurriedly explained, "Those guys keep coming, trying to force me to sell. They won't leave me alone." Thanks to Hyun Sok's intervention, the troublemakers were arrested. Feeling guilty, Won Young invited him to shower and then cooked curry rice as an apology. Just as they sat down to eat, both of their phones buzzed, texts from Si Hyun and Min Si, inviting them to a housewarming party. At the party, watching the newlyweds acting all lovey-dovey, Won Young got drunk again, and ended up collapsing against Hyun Sok's shoulder. "I'll take him home," Hyun Sok offered. But just as they reached the restaurant door, Won Young suddenly woke up, insisting he could walk. Hyun Sok smirked. I knew it, you were faking it. What's that supposed to mean? Won Young snapped. Tensions flared, words turned sharp, and soon they were arguing in the middle of the street. Overwhelmed, Won Young's eyes filled with tears. Think what you want, he choked out. I'm leaving. He turned and stumbled, falling hard onto the pavement. Seeing him like that, Hyun Sok sighed, his frustration melting into concern. He helped him up and took him back inside. But the moment they returned, Won Young coldly shooed him away again, like driving off bad luck. Walking home, Hyun Sok grumbled under his breath. We've already slept together, and he still treats me like this. Halfway there, he turned back. By the time he arrived, Won Young was just about to go out. You again? Won Young asked, startled. Without answering, Hyun Sok grabbed his face and kissed him. You're always running off to someone else anyway, he said, eyes dark. Why not stay with me instead? For a man who'd been straight for decades, Tae Hyun Sok was shocked by his own desire. He'd fallen for this sharp-tongued, beautiful man, and now, he wanted more. To see Won Young again, Hyun Sok later brought his team to the restaurant for a group meal. Even his subordinates, who usually only ate Korean food, couldn't stop praising the pasta. When Hyun Sok went to pay, Won Young shook his head. No need, the restaurant's been peaceful lately. Thanks to your help, think of it as my treat. Some days later, during a stakeout, Hyun Sok and his team waited all day for a suspect to appear. By evening, they were starving. His subordinates brought fast food, but Hyun Sok refused to eat. All he could think of was Won Young's cooking. By the time the mission ended, it was past 10. The restaurant's probably closed, he muttered. But his stomach growled loudly. It's only 5 minutes away. Maybe he's still there. When he arrived, the lights were still on. I'm sorry, we're closed, Won Young said without turning around. As he turned, Hyun Sok noticed a large bruise on his face. What happened? Did those guys come back? Won Young brushed him off. Yeah, they paid a fine and got out. Nothing serious. Hearing that, Hyun Sok frowned. Maybe you should just sell the place. You never know what they'll do next. But Won Young shook his head. This restaurant holds memories of my parents, and Min-si. I can't give it up. Their talk ended awkwardly, and Hyun Sok left, but not for long. Moments later, Won Young, while cleaning up the courtyard, felt a pair of arms wrap around his waist. Startled, he turned. You're heartless, a familiar voice teased. Why'd you take so long to open the door? It was Hyun Sok. He hadn't left at all, he'd been waiting outside the whole time. Without warning, he pushed Won Young against the counter, kissing him fiercely. Afterward, he even made him ramen, earning himself a night's stay in return. Lying in bed, Won Young sighed. Fine, tomorrow I'll make him a lunchbox as payment for the ramen. The truth was, this beautiful man was a hopeless drunk. Whenever he was upset, he drank until he passed out. And though Hyun Sok always claimed, he's not my responsibility, he still ran to pick him up every single time. One night, during a class reunion, Min-si had to leave early. His wife demanded he be home by 10. Left alone, Won Young drowned himself in liquor again. Hey, how are you going home like this? Someone coming to get you? Or should I take you to my place? A sleazy guy with glasses reached for him. Won Young slapped his hand away and shakily dialed his phone. Hearing the slurred voice on the other end, Hyun Sok sighed. Again, guess I'm on babysitting duty tonight. He arrived at the restaurant minutes later. I'm here to pick up CO Won Young, he said. The sleazy man eyed him up and down. And you are? I'm a police officer, Hyun Sok replied coolly. At that, everyone's eyes widened. Even a few women in the room started whispering about how handsome he looked. Unable to get his address out of the drunk man, Hyun Sok brought Won Young to his own home again. Like a rabbit in a lion's den, Won Young was fussed over all night. Later, lying in bed, they talked quietly. Hyun Sok shared the story of his first love, Si-hyun. Then, out of curiosity, Or maybe jealousy? He asked about Won Young's past. Won Young spoke softly about his years in France, about the man he once loved there. But halfway through, Hyun Sok's expression darkened. I don't want to hear more, he murmured, and sealed his lips with a kiss. A few days later, during lunch at work, Hyun Sok smiled down at the homemade lunchbox sitting in front of him, packed neatly with love by Won Young himself. The two had grown strangely close. But when Won Young suddenly stopped answering his calls for hours, Hyun Sok grew restless. He called again and again, 16 times, until finally, a weak voice answered. What's wrong? Why so many calls? Hearing his voice, Hyun Sok sighed in relief. I'll come take care of you after work. Just as he was about to leave, Si-hyun called. My stomach hurts. I called an ambulance, but there's no one home. At the hospital, Hyun Sok sat by her bedside, talking calmly, but his thoughts were elsewhere. That brat still isn't answering her phone. Don't tell me she fell asleep again. When Si-hyun was confirmed to be fine, he rushed to Won Young's place. As expected, the man was asleep again, feverish and pale. Hyun Sok quietly placed a cooling patch on his forehead, washed the grapes he brought, and filled the empty fridge with food. When Won Young woke and insisted he could handle himself, Hyun Sok just smiled stubbornly. No way. What if you get worse? I'll stay on the couch. Late that night, the bedroom door creaked open. Won Young looked up groggily. It was Hyun Sok, scratching his head awkwardly. I think I'll sleep here too.